Welcome to another This Week in Co-working discussion.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the This Week in Co-working podcast feed. I am your host, Hector Colonas, and today I'm joined by a guest co-host over from OfficeRnD, Momchil Blaskov. How are you, Momchil?
Hi, Hector. Thanks for having me. I'm great. Very excited to be here today with you. It's been a while since we chatted, so yeah.
Well, great to have you back on the podcast. And today is a pretty big day over at OfficeRnD. I can see a lot of people moving around in the background there. You guys are getting ready to celebrate OfficeRnD's 11th birthday. So I'm going to try and get through this episode with you as quickly as we can so you can get back out there and celebrate with the rest of the team. So from us and the co-working world, happy birthday to OfficeRnD for 11 years of co-working magic.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will get a glass of champagne for you as well.
Appreciate that. Today's episode, we're going to dive into the impact that childcare has in co-working and how that can impact people who need childcare. Speaking from experience, we're going to look at a day pass pricing experiment from Australia. We're also going to look at what does that mean for the way that workspaces or traditional occupiers leverage amenity space and what that could mean given the previous experiment. And we're going to look at some numbers out of Poland and their co-working industry. But before we do that, this week's podcast episode and newsletter and game and all the things in This Week Co-working are sponsored by the team at OfficeRnD. And we asked them, what do you want to tell the world about? And the thing that you and the team are most excited about is 100% your new sales agent. So, Monchil, tell me, what is the AI sales agent and who is it for?
Yeah. So AI sales agent did operators to respond 24/7 to prospects, while at the same time it checks in real-time availability and pricing in OfficeRnD, and it allows you to really easily manage your locations and salespeople, things that already live at OfficeRnD. It's aimed at operators who would face challenges with managing their volume at one hand, but also it's relevant for smaller operators who juggle all the time with multiple tasks and they really want to nail this. We know that within Flex, it's key the response time. So the quicker you are, the better that you get in terms of conversion. So that's one thing, someone who works for you 24/7 and gets all responses. And the second thing goes around that we serve as a system of record, knowing all this like inventory pricing, as well as bookings, and the agent can take care of this as well.
That's awesome. So obviously it's built into OfficeRnD, so there is no integration needed, right? It's already part of the OfficeRnD platform, so it already can see everything that you could see in OfficeRnD. Does that sound about right? Would you agree with that? That is one of the benefits?
The key benefit is that, as I mentioned, you're able to, it knows about all the products that you offer already. So it knows about whether this is private office, meeting room, co-working, dedicated desk, virtual office, doesn't matter. It knows the pricing, it knows what amenities you have, and all those details come through. On top of that, whenever we make any update or whatever you do, for example, the office turns from free to occupied or vice versa, the agent knows this and knows what to offer. And on top of that, we also are now working on to expand this into a bigger portion of the entire flow so that the agent can help you with other tasks such as bookings, tours, etc.
That's awesome. So let's go to the start of the beginning. I'm interested in turning this on for my OfficeRnD powered space. Is there a training period? How long does that look like? And what is the process?
Yeah, so here a lot of people expect miracles from AI without spending some time, but actually think about it as hiring junior person in your team who knows everything about your inventory, knows your space, and on a high level, but can follow a lot of guidances. So it's very important to think of it this way. And it comes with also we offer templates with different guidances, so you can train the agent to do different things per product. For example, for private offices to aim to book a tour, whereas for meeting rooms to try to guide them to self-checkout, and for virtual office to register for virtual office, etc. So you can set different objectives, and the way that we build it is pretty flexible. So we aim to get 1-2 products live into, like I would say, up to 20 days live and running. And then while we have those products live, you can keep in test mode the other products and gradually add your entire portfolio. As we've seen that customers actually want to first see how it works for one or two products, then add, and then gradually get the full volume through the agent.
I love the fact that it only takes 20-ish days. It takes longer to train an intern. So that is really good numbers. So tell me, where can this agent live? Does it live in like a chat bot? Does it live in an email inbox? Where does it currently live and where will it live in the next couple of months?
Yeah. At the moment, it lives in email, so it can be whether like a form is submitted on the website or to receive a direct email, doesn't matter. And we're working chat. So just the team was doing several improvements and like gradually building this, and hope we have pretty strict deadlines. So we'll be looking in the next 2-3 months to have also chat out there for our customers, and we'll see. And we'll take it from there. I mean, depends on customer demand, what they're looking for. We might expand in other directions, such as voice text. Really depends on what our customers are looking for.
That's great. And it's obviously a new product, and you guys are constantly innovating and integrating more solutions and more channels. So the best thing I could do is, if I'm an OfficeRnD Flex customer, get in touch, get it turned on, and then start giving as much feedback as I can. I think that's the best way to drive the product, as opposed to kind of waiting for everything to be polished before jumping in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have quite a few live customers already, so that's why also we announced general availability. But still, it's a small customer base relatively, so we're very open for feedback, and our roadmap is also wide open for making this work for as many operators as possible.
And this is part of your AI hub, which is one of the hubs that are available within OfficeRnD Flex. You've got obviously Growth Hub for e-commerce, Marketing Hub, etc. So this is one of those hubs, but it's called the AI hub. So I'm assuming sales agent is not the only agent you guys are looking at. Is there other agents that people should start expecting to start interacting with in and around OfficeRnD?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason we're starting with the sales agent was mainly because it's something that our customers are already looking for, and there was a clear demand around it. We'll be looking into a few other areas, such as potentially support, helping with onboarding, as well as making some tedious tasks within our system much easier. Yeah, but stay tuned. This is coming hopefully from Q3 onwards.
Great.
But the ultimate strategy is to build a suite of agents who are able to communicate between each other, pass people through. Yeah. So, for example, we'll be looking on the road to build a support agent who will be able to handling people on members coming on the website, but also within the member portal and the mobile app that OfficeRnD offers. So covering multiple channels that we're uniquely positioned to do so, which will have access to all the booking, billing information, contracts, and everything else that lives in OfficeRnD. And yeah, that's just one of many. So the ultimate goal is to have a full suite of agents.
That's awesome. There. And you guys are putting out updates very, very rapidly. One of the things I've noticed following OfficeRnD over the last 11 years is your output has definitely increased. Like we saw multiple updates this week from OfficeRnD outside of AI Sales Agent. We saw the addition of, checking out within the mobile app when you're logged in. We saw the additional bundling for like multi-passes without having to create multiple different product lines or plan lines. So quite a lot of velocity coming out of OfficeRnD. So I just want to kind of take my hat off to you as a product manager at OfficeRnD. We are noticing the increased throughput of turning backlog into features and product updates. So congrats on that.
Yeah, we also internally started leveraging more AI, and it's just the beginning. So it's a very interesting time now to be into product. But what we also will be facing is the next challenging how we help more efficiently for our customers to adopt, changing their processes, changing the way they work. So that's why we're also exploring having more of an internal onboarding agent, which to help our customers as well as a bit of a consultative role, so that they're able to make all those changes. We see that they have a limited bandwidth in terms of IT projects and things that they can change at a time. So we're potentially also looking of this down the road. And it's very interesting how the bottleneck from engineering now is moving to product design, and they need to be moving to adoption. Yes. There'll be tons of things to adopt.
Oh, yes.
And we should help our customers with this task as well.
That is a fascinating way to look at it, and I completely agree. And it's definitely becoming a problem. We're putting out so many features that you're like, okay, the communication of that, the implementation, the onboarding of that becomes the bottleneck. Whereas for a very long time, the number one complaint we got about tech in the industry was it took too long to get features out. And now it's the flip side. Like there's features just coming out, coming out. So I look forward to sharing your next agents that you roll out and all your next updates as well. But let's dive into the newsletter. I said earlier that, childcare is very important to me, especially coming into the summer holidays. I never thought about summer holidays as like a quieter period productivity wise until I had a kid. But now that I'm there, I'm like, yeah, the school day is halved. There's now extracurriculars that are like further away. There's a lot more moving and running around during the day. And so the post that I saw this week talking about how co-working spaces that offer childcare are actually critical to making people who have childcare responsibilities more efficient totally hit the bell with me. Is this also a challenge for caregivers in Bulgaria?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially within all these business centers. For example, now our office recently moved to one, and its operator manages 6 floors, and there are like tons of people coming around, and with all the late meetings happening with the US, as we have many customers there, things are getting really challenging, and you have to constantly juggle where you should leave the kids, what you should do, if you have to pick them up a day earlier, then what to do with them during a call and all those things. And it would be really much more easier if there was an offer here for daycare and you'll be right immediately after the end of your call, you'll be there. And it's much better than having to commute to pick them from somewhere. You'll be late already on top of what you've been late because of your work schedule. I really love something like this, and I think it's a great direction to think into. And given also the entire hospitality of the co-working industry and maybe people going to co-living, I think especially for parents, that's a big chunk of being able to more easily juggle with all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching the childcare and co-working industry for a very, very long time. And all the ones that started out with full childcare support, they kind of shift back to like, okay, we have this space. You can drop your kids off, you can watch them from the meeting room. And there is oftentimes, especially in Europe, someone caring for them, but they're not a teacher. They're not responsible for the kid for the full day. It's more like a drop-in, drop-out service. Nara, who hosted our recent co-working meetup here in Jersey City, they had the same thing. They have this beautiful space that kids can play in, but it's no longer staffed by the space. And I think it's that disconnect of parents don't need it all the time. And if they do need it all the time, they need a different type of product. And so it's very interesting to kind of see that shift. And then how do you monetize that? Like almost always it's 2 separate businesses, liability, costs, memberships of who gets access to this, who doesn't. There's a lot of just challenges to solve there. But the impact on folks who have to make those decisions, because it adds additional stress, right? You're not really only thinking about that product meeting with that US client or, should I spend an extra half an hour, speaking to the agent to fix this bug when I then need to go 13 minutes by car to pick the kid up, get them dressed in the summer, which is not that hard compared to the winter, but then get them into the car, get them into the transport, get them to where they need to get to, wash their hands, which takes 35 minutes. And then getting onto back to what you were doing next is definitely a cognitive load that I can see a lot of working parents carrying that.
Yeah. And we don't have here also the women perspective, but even for them it's even more crucial in some regards, and all the connection, especially in the early days, it's very, very important. And for them it's even tougher that they're not able to spend all the time they want with the kids. So, and if they have to commute 90 minutes and then they have to commute back. Yesterday I was chatting with a colleague and she said, I literally, when I return back to work, I'm not seeing my child anymore because of this and lack of flexibility. And it's so much designed around the work balance of men in the 70s still. 50 years later, and things should have been changed for that. And this web will give, I think, a lot of flexibility, similarly to what operators are offering. They're offering flexibility, and this is just another piece of it. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really where it comes down to but increasingly more and more we are seeing the satellite approach being used in this use case, even if it's not because there's childcare there, but being able to pop into an office or a pod or a meeting room, conference room, day office, day pass, whatever, near the kid on specific days, or the kids near on specific days, or when they're going to go do soccer in the evening, or whatever it is, just makes everyone more productive, but also, once again, provides that extra level of flexibility that we couldn't do with traditional office. So I think it's just about reimagining and keep bringing it to the forefront of workspace leaders, because it's not just about whether there's childcare or not. It's about where can I work that allows me to not have to think about the 90 minutes commute or think about answering a call on that commute or whatever it is, just so you can get closer and still be productive and still contribute back to your team. And or if there was a post in the newsletter this week about becoming an individual contributor. If you are an individual contributor and you have childcare responsibilities, it's very hard to juggle that if you haven't got quick access to spaces that allow you to do your best work for as long as possible. But that does bring us another topic from the newsletter this week, and that was talking about day passes. The team over at WOTSO across Australia and New Zealand, they ran an experiment last month where they dropped their average day pass from 66 Australian dollars to 22, so 2/3 discount, and shared their findings. It was really, really interesting to see that their total revenue generated via the Day Pass product went up to 6% of total revenue, almost doubling from 3% the month before. They also said that it changed the way people booked Day Passes, with 70% now going directly to the e-commerce checkout as opposed to the 30% who used to do that before. Everyone else used to go to the community manager, request it, send an email, and it was very, very manual. But by lowering the price, they've actually increased the self-service element of it, which is kind of counterintuitive. You'd think people would spend more time doing self-checkout if it's more expensive, but it was actually the other way around. And the last thing that they shared was it was also being used in volume. So they had a couple of companies buying 1,000 day passes at a time. Like, that is a very interesting dynamic. Jessica digs a little bit more into it on her post, looking at what does this mean for how businesses are using or thinking about space. If they can have a roster of 1,000 passes that they can kind of use as pay-as-you-go access, how does that change their relationship with the space? WOTSO has multiple locations, so it's going to be very interesting to see where those 1,000 day passes are used. Are they all used where they traditionally would have had desks, or are they now starting to spread out a bit more, going back to what we were saying a little bit earlier, working closer to the kids' school, working closer to, adults that they need to care for, etc. So very interesting numbers. What did you get away from this day pass experiment?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously, in terms of revenue, this won't become much more significant probably, no matter how they change the price, but still it's a huge, huge jump. And also I think that day passes are great top of funnel thing, as people come, see the space, and then they are able to engage them with different marketing campaigns and everything else. So I think it's a great also in terms of marketing, as well as genuinely broadening this and getting more leads through. And it's very, really impressive how big of a impact the price can have. Personally, for me, as I thought that even if this was a radical decrease, but still, I guess they also put behind it quite a bit of a promotion stuff to get through, and probably this went to the e-commerce, which also explains why it's 70%. So yeah, it's a great way, I think, as there are many spaces who, as we have, as you know, we have hundreds of customers, and for most of them, hot desk area, it's something that is never fully occupied. And I think there is a great opportunity there in such campaigns, and every now and then challenging this to first of all, get some extra revenue. That's one thing, but much bigger to get this top of funnel and people who will be engaging with your brand. What also will be seeing when you, as you mentioned, those 1,000 day passes and having these flexibilities. Currently, some of our customers are doing partnerships, and they merge forces together to offer day passes, which in terms of locations becomes much bigger, covering all the time zones in the US and different states from East to West Coast. And I think there is a huge potential there to see for such corporates and stuff making these joint partnerships and bundles will be very impactful.
I know that reciprocal networks, multi-brand booking networks have been tried over the last decade. They always kind of fall down on the technical side of who charges the payment and then how do I give money to the other spaces that get used. It's why platforms like Upflex, Dasana, etc. came into the bubble to have that centralized billing. But it's going to be very interesting to see how maybe 100 OfficeRnD customers, if this functionality exists for them to share that bundle, what that could look like. I mean, that's very, very interesting. But I also want to ask Jessie the next time I speak to her about what was the marketing spend, right? And how did that compare to previous marketing spend for this? Because even if you don't run it full time, it's a great way near the end of the year, Black Friday, etc., just sell a product that's cash up front and doesn't really cost you much money to service. Whereas meeting rooms, a lot of people do kind of discounts on meeting rooms. That's a high service ticket, right? You have to go clean it afterwards. Day passes themselves, as long as the space is staffed, isn't an expensive product to sell. So the net revenue and net profit per day pass is fairly high if you have a pretty busy space. So it's really, really interesting to see that again. And yeah, it's just something that you sent me down a rabbit hole in my mind about what would it look like to have a bundle pass that I can buy 1,000 day passes and use them anywhere. Took me back to the early days of co-working and co-pass. Interesting. But there was another link in the newsletter this week that I want to kind of bring in slightly close to this use of day passes and kind of how people would use them. And it was actually from outside of the co-working world. It was from a head of workplace at a fairly large company. And she posed a question to a bunch of workspace leaders around which spaces surprised them. It was an interesting post, but the thing that caught my attention was a quote that she put in there that the desk traditionally is where work gets documented or planned, but the spaces in between are where the work actually gets done. And if this is how kind of workspace leaders or workspace planners are thinking about how corporates or corporate teams use the space, and we're also seeing more and more corporates buying 1,000 day passes or subscribing for spillover space. If this is what they're expecting to use the space, how does that impact how we plan co-working space, right? You've sold 1,000 day passes, but if they're expecting to also use meeting rooms and also kind of use all the breakout spaces, how does that impact how you service that customer, but also so you don't water down the product for your full-time members? So just a very interesting dynamic. What are you thinking or what are you seeing from your side when it comes to the use of different types of spaces under one purchase?
So what we've been seeing recently is that more and more operators offer daily offices, and this is growing a lot in terms of revenue. And obviously, when they're in between people occupying them, they're able to increase the occupancy. But at the same time, also this gets quite a good traction. As what we're seeing again here is that people are looking for alternative locations, might be corporates who might be taking them for a day, a week, or a short period of time. To exactly, it's not because of the desk within those private offices, but they have a separate coworking space where they can talk. I think it's very also important, especially for bigger corporates, to have some level of privacy, so that if they're working on some projects and stuff, they can do it without doing this in a shared space. So it probably depends per the team size and what their topic is, but it's really growing. And in terms of co-working operators, this means that they still live with the current setup, but do not go into doing very large or extremely large shared areas, which, for example, might take a lot of their real estate. Instead, they keep to a strategy of having a lot of offices, having, of course, some shared areas, but then with those daily offices, they're able to compensate for example, not having a extremely big shared area or something like that.
I remember speaking to the now CEO over at Bond Collective, and they were saying that their last few locations don't even have hot desking space. It used to be the number one selling product a couple of years ago, and their latest locations do not have hot desking space. So my thinking is, yeah, maybe they don't have hot desking space, but maybe more like loungy meeting room spaces that are not bookable, that do become that spin-out zone. If that is what large tenants are expecting, being able to provide that may be a better use of the space than hot desks. If you're not, like WOTSO selling 1,000 day passes, right? Because you need to be able to put them somewhere. You do not want to put them into meeting rooms. But I've just told, and I had really interesting studies comparing the price of an average day office to hot desking prices. I'm assuming it must be 2x or 2.5x the hot desk price, just from like the way I'm thinking people use them. But I guess it also depends on the space, right? Because not every private office is not the same. But I'd be very curious. I'd love to see that correlation one day of what are people charging per day on a day office, or what are they charging per day on a hot desk for a day pass? Because that would be pretty interesting to kind of see. I'm assuming it's a 2.5 correlation. Anything else you want to add on this topic?
Yeah, as we've been currently chatting a lot around the sales agent with customers, and we see that their product mix varies a lot from location to location. And this is not it, and this is based on obviously the population that they have at the different locations, and they might be in the walk-in traffic, and they might have locations where they do not expect any walk-in traffic, where it's more of a office buildings, and probably for those it makes perfect sense to be without any hot desk or shared area. But if there is on a very central spot where there are a lot of walk-ins coming through, and I think that still having some hot desking area in place might be attractive, but really depends on, of course, your business model, but also depends on the location and what's the demand per location. So really, when opening new locations, and exactly that's what they emphasize, that they're really looking to, first of all, get right the product mix. And that's really the most important thing. And after they're done with the product mix, everything else happens much more easier. But if they mess it up from the beginning, then they might be that they're not getting fully occupied. And yeah.
Yep. Agree. And I've been one of those people that has booked a day pass, gotten in, and there are only couches. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
But I can't work well on a couch, right? I can do that at a coffee shop. So like, if you don't create that hot desk space, is selling day passes the right thing for you? And that's a debate we can get into many times, maybe at the next conference over a coffee or a beer. And before we jump out, I did want to jump over to Poland. We heard great numbers out of Poland from the Colliers team there. They said that the flex market in Poland has now grown by 30% over the last 3 years. It now covers around 4.6 million square feet, which is over 3% of the total office stock in Poland. The reason why that definitely caught my eye is a few platforms over the last couple of months have put out the numbers for the US and major US cities, and 3% is pretty much where New York sits in kind of net of the entire office stock being flex. So it's great to see, Poland is one of the countries where we keep hearing strong numbers out. So it's good to quantify that with some actual numbers from the ground. We've also got a bunch of the different type of operators. So we have a whole bunch of international operators, the Mindspaces, Brain Embassies, WeWorks, Regis, for example. And then we've also got the Shire and City Space, who are local homegrown brands, also eating up a whole bunch of that square footage or square meterage over in Poland. So just good to see some numbers and some very healthy competition in a market that seems to just be growing year after year. You guys do a lot of work in Poland right now?
Yeah, we have quite a few customers. And to be honest, they're very advanced in terms of their thinking and how technology savvy they are. As you can literally, they're like, I would say, of operators in the US and UK that match them in terms of the way that they're thinking of the business and the way they develop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm not surprised that they're managed to achieve such a number of high percentage, like 3%, as actually what we're seeing, that those guys really understanding the industry, understanding what they're doing. And they're really looking to effectively scale this, and they cannot do it without technology. So that's why we're recently getting more and more bigger customers from Poland. They also, some of them, expand and become more regional players in Central Europe, like in Hungary, Czech Republic, and everything else. But their region is from Poland.
Mm-hmm.
So really great to see these developments.
I love it. And we'll keep tracking more and more data coming out of Europe as well. Excited to start seeing some more data coming out of Africa as well. So we'll be sharing that in the upcoming newsletters as well. As and when it hits our inbox, we'll share it with all of you. WOTSO, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you're eager to get back to the celebration, so I will let you get back. Thank you for spending some time with us today. For everyone else, we'll be back in your podcast feed next week. But until then, take care and thanks again, Momchilon.
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for having me and looking forward to the next one.